Welcome to Lesson 1, Lecture 2, Globalization. Let's get started. What is globalization? Well, globalization encompasses many trends. It can encompass the idea of expanding international trade between states, the increase in telecommunications. Individuals being able to Skype across the world, for instance, is a relatively new ability for people to cheaply talk face-to-face with individuals on the other side of the globe. It also includes cultural changes, the Hollywoodization of the world. What is a global, is there a global culture that's developing through mass media and mass cultural exchanges? Multinational corporations that are operating all over the world. Toyota, for instance, when we think about cars, or McDonald's as we think about fast food. Migration and refugee flows, so people are moving throughout the world at a large rate. So these are trends that we talk about when we talk about globalization. So while most people consider globalization to be important, and we've been talking about globalization for quite heavily for the last 20 years, as a concept it is actually quite poorly defined. And the authors note this in their textbook. So there are competing views about globalization. One is the liberal economic perspective. And this is that globalization has brought growth and prosperity to states that are integrated with the global market. So this is the idea that states such as Korea and Taiwan and even China have become better off because they have made their economies part of the world economy, and they've been integrated with the global market. They can trade their goods, they can purchase goods, and this has made these states better off. Within this liberal economic perspective, there is an idea that states are losing their authority to intergovernmental organizations, such as the World Trade Organization, and that the world is becoming much more connected, and that states have less to do, are less important in the international system. Another part of this liberal economic perspective is that there are the values of the technocrats. These are people that understand how trade and finance works, so economists and finance gurus. And the elite in liberal countries are becoming global. So this is exporting Harvard economics to the world, and that what used to be regional values, or perhaps values of individuals within states, are becoming less important than the values of this elite group. There's also a skeptical view of globalization. These skeptics point out that although the last 20 or 30 years has seen a great increase in the integration of economies, that economies are actually no more integrated than they were prior to World War I in the early 1900s, early 20th century. They doubt that regional distinctions such as South America or North America or even Europe are disappearing in favor of a global market. They think that this theory of an emerging world civilization with the values of the elites is disproved by the large-scale breakups of larger units. So this collapse of the Soviet Union into many different countries is an example of this. But we've recently had another country created in Africa, the South Sudan, and so as kind of a counter argument to the fact that everyone is becoming more closely aligned, is that this evidence that groups within states are still willing to split and maintain their own identity. And the skeptics also focus on states, language, religion, and other cultural factors that are still very, very important in the way that people interact and view the world. So a third view of globalization are kind of this middle ground. So the liberal economic view is kind of pro-globalization and rah-rah-rah. The skeptics are doubtful that globalization is anything other than a buzzword. And then in the middle ground, we have kind of these transformationalists. Transformationalists see that sovereignty, state sovereignty, the ability of individual states to make their own decisions across a range of issues, is being eroded by these organizations, such as the EU. And the EU is an excellent example of states being willing to give up their own decision making in order to join this organization. The same is true of the World Trade Organization and other organizations. However, sovereignty is still there. So sovereignty has not been subsumed, and sovereignty, you can look up your definition in your book, but sovereignty is essentially the ability of states to make decisions for themselves. But this sovereignty is no longer absolute. It's one of a range of bargaining positions. So states may no longer be able to do exactly what they want, but they still have options to choose what organizations they're going to belong to, what standards they're going to uphold, and how they implement those. So globalization hasn't completely transformed things, but it has changed the way that states can make decisions. And that's why this transformationalist is the term, because state power is transformed to operate in new contexts with new tools. So in the book, I recommend, as I did in the last lecture, remember to read the book and understand these things that are written there. An important issue within this particular chapter of the book is the historical basis for the world order that we have today. So the two world wars, World War I in 1913 through 1919, and then World War II from 1939 to 1945, were two large-scale disruptions. They changed the landscape of Europe and of the world, and emerging from the two world wars, after World War I, the League of Nations, which was an idea set forth by the U.S. President Wilson, but which the U.S. never formally joined. Those ideas were later taken into account and strengthened in the formation of the United Nations at the end of World War II in 1945. So after these world wars, those two events were enough to get states to think about ways that they could more formally organize in order to prevent such things from happening before. At the end of World War II, there were two states that emerged as the winners, that were clearly more powerful than the other states around them, and that was the Soviet Union and the United States. And so for 45 years, from 1945 to 1990, the international system was shaped by the competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. So then this third period, in the evolution of the international system that we have today is the post-Cold War military changes. The militaries of the world have gotten smaller. Both the U.S. and now Russia, which is the largest successor state of the Soviet Union, have smaller militaries than they did during the Cold War. Most states have smaller militaries. Overall, there's less war than there has been, and the threat of a large-scale nuclear war between the two superpowers has faded, and other transnational concerns, such as narcotics and terrorism, have taken the forefront of what states are interested in.